Hi, everybody. I'm ConnieJo with Soul Navigation, and today I want to talk about Venus and Venus Sun compatibility. And this is so important, y'all, because Venus is not just what we're attracted to or what fashion we like or how we want to remodel our house or decorate our home, but it's also our values and our money. So when it comes to Venus signs, we need to be compatible with our partner or the people in our family, our friends. It's important to see that compatibility through values, and especially in a committed partnership, how we spend our money. So here's a little tip about Venus. If you're not sure of someone's Venus sign, Venus is never more than 45 degrees away from the sun. So if you know their birthday, you can look at that sign or the sign on either side. For instance, if they are a Capricorn, they may have their Venus in Capricorn, Aquarius, or possibly Sagittarius. Now, this isn't always the case. Sometimes if our sun is at 29 degrees, it may be two signs away, but it's a good tip for kind of figuring out someone's Venus sign. I'm going to go through all 12 signs and look at the compatibility with each sign. So a bit of it might get a little bit repetitive, but we will have some timestamps so you can zero in and go right to your Venus sign or the Venus sign of your loved ones and family. Get out their charts too if you do know what their Venus sign is, and let's see what sign your Venus is most compatible with. So let's take a look at Venus in Aries. So I have so many adjectives for Venus and Aries. They are passionate, they are impulsive, they're fearless, they're daring, they're enterprising, they're all of these things. And when it comes to love, Aries may fall in love a little bit quickly. They're usually number one and pretty fast with everything they do. That is just the way Aries is. They were the first sign, and so they are probably the first to fall in love too. But Aries likes the thrill of the chase. They like a challenge. And when it comes to money, they don't mind taking risks. Now, Aries is probably a sign that would take a chance on the stock market or take a chance in investing somehow. They don't mind taking risks, but they're very generous with their money. They may spend without thinking. And when it comes to values, they do value honesty. I will say this about Aries, they are very straightforward, they are very honest, they love their freedom. And I think that is a value for them. They value having freedom in relationships, in money, whatever. They're very adventurous. And most of all, Venus and Aries is fun. They're fun to be around. They make things interesting. So, what signs do Venus and Aries get along with the best? Okay. Well, let's start with the two signs that are in trine or in a harmonious aspect to Aries. So we have Leo and we have Sagittarius, the other two fire signs. Now, when it comes to Leo, Aries and Leo understand each other pretty well. They're Venus signs. When it comes to values, they both value loyalty and honesty, for one. They both love adventure. I think that Venus and Leo can be a little bit more on the romantic side, maybe the dramatic side, which could get on Aries' nerves just a bit. When it comes to spending money, though, I think both of them kind of have the same premise. They both are generous and like to give things to other people. And I do think Aries is probably a little bolder when it comes to investing than Leo is. So let's look at Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. So we have Jupiter and Mars here together. Of course, Aries is ruled by Mars. This is an interesting combination, both being fire signs. I think Sagittarius loves to take risks just as much as Aries does. So when it comes to money, I think that they probably are on the same page. They may spend too much, but they may take a risk and make a lot of money together as well. I do think that when it comes to love, Sagittarius may be a little bit less passionate and more detached than Aries. Not that Sag is detached, but probably a little bit more than Aries is. I can see them getting along well when it comes to fashion or decorating because both of them really are kind of live and let live. I think Sagittarius is probably more so than Aries, but for the most part, all of these fire signs with Venus and the fire signs, I mean, get along really well together. So let's look at the sextiles, the signs that are one sign away. They share the same gender. So they all share the masculine gender. So first we have Aquarius, the air sign. I kind of love Aquarius Venus with Aries Venus because Aquarius, it really is a bit live and let live, but they're pretty quirky. And I think Aries doesn't mind that. I do think that Aquarius presents a challenge to Aries, which Aries loves. They may not get along as well when it comes to the aesthetics of things, the decorating. There may be some problems in that area. And again, we have Aries that is very passionate, and then Aquarius, their love language is more intellectual. So, but basically, they still get along really well. Now we have Gemini. This one is interesting as well because I think Gemini's curiosity really challenges Aries, which they love. When it comes to money, I think that Gemini says, okay, whatever you want to spend on is fine with me, but they'd rather have money spent on adventure or the things that they can learn from. That's kind of how Venus and Gemini works. And I really should have said that about Sagittarius too, because I think that they would prefer their money to be spent on memories and adventures, for one thing. But Aries is adventurous too. So when it comes to the love nature, Gemini may not be quite as passionate as Aries, but they still get along. So what about Libra? We have the sign in opposition. This is where things can get a little bit different. Libra and then Aries is very impulsive. I think this can upset the harmony that Libra likes to have when they have this impulsive Venus coming at them, especially when it comes to money. Now, Aries is very generous. And I think Libra loves that, the generosity that comes from Aries. I think sometimes, though, their honesty and their need to be direct can be a little bit harsh for Libra Venus. For the most part, this can work. This is a combination that can work. They are both cardinal signs, really cardinal meaning they're the signs that start something. They're the signs that are the beginning of something. So like Libra, the beginning of relationships, and Aries, the beginning of the zodiac. So Libra and Aries definitely can work, but Aries can be a little bit harsh for Libra sometimes, I think. Okay, now we have the signs that are in square. The square is an aspect that's not harmonious. So let's take a look at these. First, we have Capricorn. Well, I do think that Aries is too impulsive for Capricorn. Capricorn, they prefer to really be more practical, think things out, climb the ladder slowly, climb the mountain slowly, the mountain goat. And Aries is more impulsive, quick to jump into things like love, into things like spending money. And Capricorn prefers to take things a little bit more slow. So if you're in a relationship and you have an Aries Venus and you're with someone that has a Capricorn Venus, these are the things you need to look out for. That Capricorn would prefer to be a bit more practical, to take things a bit slower, and Aries in their passion, they're full speed ahead. And then we have the other square, which would be Cancer. So the sign of Cancer can be a bit too sensitive for Aries. Now, I'm not saying that all Cancers are sensitive, but they're a cardinal sign as well. I mean, they start things. They are movers and shakers of the zodiac. All of the cardinal signs are, but in a very different way. Cancer would prefer to spend their money on their home or their family, maybe. And Aries may be too, they may take too many risks for the Cancer Venus. So, just some things to think about if you're in a square, if your Aries Venus is in a square to Cancer or Capricorn, that these two signs, even though they're cardinal signs, they handle money, they handle their values differently than Aries does. Anything can work, guys. Any combination can work because there's so many other planets involved. But when we're talking about Venus signs, our values, our money, and our love, the aesthetics of life, possibly the squares don't work out quite as well. And then we have the quincunx signs. Okay, so we have Scorpio and Virgo that are in a quincunx or an inconjunct to Aries. Now, Scorpio and Aries can actually get along well. Scorpio, although now ruled by Pluto, was once ruled by Mars, just like Aries is. So this is a combination that can work. Aries may move a little bit quickly for Scorpio, but Scorpio kind of likes the chase a little bit as well, although they're much more serious about things. Scorpio has a more serious side than Aries does. So, and I also think that the dynamics of the values could get in the way because Scorpio demands loyalty. And it's not that Aries isn't loyal, that's not it at all. They're honest and they're straightforward. But really, if Aries Venus gets bored, they'll move on pretty quickly. It's like they fall in love quickly, but they can also fall out of love quickly. And that doesn't sit very well with a Scorpio Venus. Now, I'm not saying that Aries are not loyal or can't stay in love. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if they do get bored, they are one of the Venus signs that will move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Scorpio being fixed water does not move on quite as easily. Now, the other sign that's in a quincunx or 5 signs away or has nothing in common with Aries at all is Virgo. So Virgo is mutable earth. Virgo is a bit too practical, again, kind of like Capricorn for Aries Venus. They would prefer to analyze their investments, analyze what's going on with their money for the most part. Not that Virgo won't spend money, that's not it at all. But they're not the risk takers of the zodiac as the Venus in Aries is. So that's one issue. But there's something very tantalizing about having the Venus signs in a quincunx. It's like you really don't understand the other person or the way they operate or the way their Venus operates. And for some reason, there's something very attractive about that. So just keep that in mind for these signs that are quincunx or 5 signs away. And also for our next door signs that are in a semi-sextile. So we have Pisces, right before Aries, and it's mutable water. Now, this can actually work better than you would think because Pisces ruled by Neptune, they were previously ruled by Jupiter. They don't set a lot of boundaries. So Aries feels like it has that freedom that it wants sometimes with this Pisces Venus. They they seem to get along okay when it comes to decorating and the aesthetics of of relationship. The money seems to work a bit, but the straightforwardness of Aries can be a bit much for Pisces. They prefer to kind of go with the flow. They're not always direct about things. So that value that Aries has, they may not see as much in Pisces. It's not that Pisces is not honest, but they're not always straightforward. Sometimes they will dance around things a little bit more than Aries would prefer. And then on the other side, we have Taurus, which is another interesting combination ruled by Venus. So we have Venus and Mars here together. This can kind of be an attractive combination. But just because you're attracted to each other doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work when it comes to your values and your money. Because again, we have practical Earth here. We have fixed Earth. And I can say right now that Venus and Taurus is probably too possessive for a Venus and Aries. You know, they like the thrill of the chase, Aries does. And Taurus may give them a little bit of that, but basically, Taurus, Venus wants security, which we're going to get into next. So that combination can be just a bit dicey. Probably not the easiest combination, Aries Venus with Taurus Venus. Okay, let's move on to the sign of Taurus and look how Venus works in Taurus and with all of the other signs. Okay, right before we do that, before we go to Venus in Taurus, I do want to make a comment about Aries Venus with another Aries Venus. Okay, so basically they operate the same way. This is where you have to look at the houses that they occupy. Because if you had Venus and Aries that was in the second house, it's going to act a little bit more like a Taurus Venus. So let's say that the other Venus is in the fifth house. It's going to kind of have a Leo flair to it. So the houses are important because it really shows in what area of life that we place our attractions and our values and how we deal with our money. So that's the one thing you would need to look at if you have an Aries Venus with an Aries Venus. Okay, now let's move on to the sign of Taurus. So Taurus, our fixed earth sign, is ruled by Venus. So Venus is very at home in Taurus. So what are some adjectives for Venus in Taurus? We have solid, secure, sensible, predictable, loyal, dependable. They like the sensual things in life. They can be a bit possessive, but they're very charming. With their money, they may spend money on things that are good quality or good food or good art. They like the comfortable side of life, things that make them comfortable. That's actually one of their values, you know, comfort and beauty are things that really apply to a Venus and Taurus. They may spend money on pampering themselves. That might be very important. Or they may invest in art or real estate as well. And they are probably very good at it, especially real estate. I think Taurus is one of the most talented signs when it comes to real estate, but they value physical affection and stability and security. Trust me, Taurus Venus values stability and security probably above all else. So then how does that work with the other Venus signs? Well, let's look first at the harmonious aspects, at the trine, at the two other earth signs. So we have Capricorn and we have Virgo. So Capricorn Venus also values security and they can be a little bit predictable as well. But I think probably Capricorn Venus, although it is practical, it will take more risk with its money. You know, Capricorns can be quite ambitious, you know, about making money. Taurus prefers the stability of things. But basically, both of these Venus signs are practical and down the earth. And probably Capricorn Venus, although it depends on other placements, they may not be as lovey-dovey as a Taurus Venus might want to be. And then we have Virgo, also practical, but more analytical about things, where, Virgo, ruled by Mercury, may rather do different things with their time than a Taurus Venus. I don't think the sensual comforts are as important to a Virgo Venus, although they do take good care of themselves for sure. And having a Taurus Venus spend money on them or on their comfort or pampering probably would not hurt the Virgo's feelings a bit. But the earth signs altogether, because of their practical nature, because they are earth signs, they actually work pretty well together when you have your Taurus Venus with another earth sign. So let's look at the sextile, at the signs that are one sign away. They share the feminine side with Taurus. And then we have Pisces and Cancer. All right, so Pisces Venus with Taurus Venus actually works really well, although Pisces Venus may be a little too slippery for Taurus. It's hard to pin down a Pisces anything. It really is. They're ruled by the fish, they're ruled by Neptune. There's no boundaries. So there may not be enough security with a Pisces Venus as a Taurus Venus would like. And then when we look at Cancer, this one actually works better because Cancer Venus wants security as well. They want that companionship, they want that security. They can probably come to an agreement about where the money should be invested, how it should be spent. Neither sign is particularly reckless with money when it comes to their Venus. So Cancer Venus gets along pretty well with Taurus Venus. It's actually a nice combination. And then we have the square. These are signs that are not harmonious with our Taurus. These are the other fixed signs. So first we have Aquarius. Okay, so Aquarius is maybe a little bit too out there, their Venus, for a Taurus Venus, because Aquarius Venus likes to be quirky. It's like they like to kind of be different than everybody else. And Taurus likes things to be the same. They want security. There is a certain amount of let's keep things on an even keel with a Taurus Venus. And with Aquarius Venus, not so much. And then we have Leo that makes the other square to Taurus. And I think that Leo being ruled by the sun can be a bit much for Taurus, although this combination can work. Both of them like comfort. I think both of them, like to spend money on things that make them comfortable, like food, good dinners, enjoying each other's company. This combination actually works better than the combination of Taurus Venus with Aquarius Venus. And now we'll go to Scorpio, the one in opposition. Okay, I think the real problem from this opposition comes from the fact that both of these Venus signs can be a bit possessive and sometimes a bit jealous. So if you can get past the possessiveness that Taurus can have and Scorpio Venus can have as well, it could actually work. They would be in a great, it's Venus and Mars, or Pluto and Mars with Venus. So, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, I thought I better clarify that, what I was talking about. So it's a yin yang energy that can definitely work. Although both of these Venus signs, if they let that possessiveness show, it's probably going to end a bit disastrous. And also because all of these fixed signs, so let's go back. Of course, we're talking about Taurus, but if you put it with Aquarius or Leo or Scorpio, we're talking about fixed energy. So fixed energy does not move easily. There's nothing wrong with fixed energy. We need to have a little fixed energy in our charts. But if you've got too much of that combination in a relationship and there's some kind of disagreement, no one tends to move. Just something to keep in mind. So that is Scorpio with Taurus. Okay, so what's next? We have our signs that are in a quincunx or an inconjunct, and the first one is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, Venus loves adventure. I think this is probably one that's tough because the Taurus Venus likes the comforts of home. They like the sensual things, and Sagittarius Venus doesn't mind getting a little down and dirty. They want to have a good time. They want that adventure in life. Now, not that Taurus can't be adventurous, they can be, but this one is a little bit tough. And I do think that Sagittarius spends their money a little bit more freely than Taurus does. So keep that in mind. And then our other inconjunct is Libra. This is one of the strangest combinations that actually works. And I love it because Libra is ruled by Venus, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and you put both Venus signs together, and somehow this combination just works. Taurus may not spend money as freely as Libra does, but Taurus wants that security. Libra wants the harmony and the balance. And I'm not sure why it works, but I've actually seen this combination in real life work quite a bit. So if you are a Taurus Venus and you're with someone that has their Venus in Libra, you can expect a few surprises because the signs are really quite different. Cardinal air with fixed earth, but this can actually work out really well. Okay, now we have our next door signs or our semi-sextile signs in Aries. And I realize we just talked about Aries with Taurus, but I do want to go through each combination for every sign. So for those that just click on the sign they're interested in, they'll get to hear everything. So Taurus Venus with Aries Venus can be a bit difficult, even though we're talking about Venus and Mars primarily, the yin and the yang, because Aries is not as stable as Taurus. Taurus Venus needs that stability. Aries moves a bit too quickly, a bit too impulsively, and not only in love, but in money as well, where Taurus had rather take risks that low risk investments or things that are less risky. Aries is ready to go for it no matter what. So I think this combination could be a little bit difficult. Just one to watch out for if you have your Venus in Taurus and your partner has their Venus in Aries. And then we have Gemini Venus with the Taurus Venus. And I think Gemini Venus would really get a bit bored with Venus and Taurus. That fixed earth with that mutable air sometimes just really doesn't go together. Although the Venus and Gemini would be so curious about everything going on with Taurus, and Taurus really not understanding that mutable air, the attraction could really exist. But then when you get into the everyday dynamics of it, like how you're going to spend your money and everything, I think they would tend to go a bit different directions. That Gemini would rather spend their money on short trips or things that they could learn from, that would satisfy that curiosity that Gemini always has. And Taurus would rather go into a more earthy direction. So just something to think about. Okay, let's move on to Venus in Gemini. And if you would like to get a reading about your Venus sign or any of your signs, I love compatibility readings, but I do readings of all kinds, just looking at the natal chart, looking at your progressions or the transits that are going on right now. So you can find how to reach me in the link below, or you can just go to soulnavigation.com and go to readers. And I'm ConnieJo. So let's move on to Venus in Gemini. What are some great adjectives for Venus in Gemini? They are clever, they're social, They're playful, they're lighthearted, they're funny. Usually they're good conversationalists, they're curious, they're fun, but they may be a little bit distant emotionally. They may prefer to have conversations that are mentally stimulating to them, rather than get into the emotional dynamics of things. And that's one thing that Gemini values is mental connections. They like to make that intellectual connection with other people. And, when it comes to money, they're about medium when it comes to taking risk. I think they're very curious about everything. So they would be curious about investments and stocks or what they might spend their money on, but they like books and adventures and things they can learn from, maybe video games, stuff like that. Things that keep them mentally stimulated. They love to share ideas. This is something, brainstorming with the Gemini can be so much fun because they come up with so many things so quickly. So I think one of the biggest values they have is adjustments, the ability to adjust, because Geminis adjust quite easily to other situations. And you'll see this when we get into the fixed Venus signs with Gemini, which is mutable air. If you're not able to adjust and to see things from a different way, it kind of irritates a Venus in Gemini because truly they are one sign that they're ruled by the twins. They're able to see things in different ways, and really they're quite accepting of other people. I think this is one of the values that they hold, that this is truly a Venus sign that accepts other people for what they are, who they are, what they value. They value an open dialogue. And Venus and Gemini can be pretty flirtatious. So let's see how this mutable Venus sign gets along with the other Venus signs. So first we have our harmonious aspects. We have the trine, or the connection to the other two air signs, which are Libra and Aquarius. So I have to say that Venus and Gemini actually gets along pretty well with Venus and Aquarius. They both really value intellectual conversations and pursuits. They value the mental sparring of going back and forth. They both have unique ways of dressing and loving each other. They love the texting, sexting kind of thing. And the same goes for Libra, but in a little bit of a different way, because Libra is a little bit more fashion forward with your Venus in Libra, and Aquarius and Gemini, they have their own fashion sense. Let's put it this way. They're very unique in how their Venus is very unique in how it looks at fashion. So that's one difference with the Libra. But basically, these three air signs, Gemini, Venus, and Libra and Aquarius, Venus, these can be really nice combinations. There's this understanding of enjoying ideas and mental stimulation that all three of those signs have. So let's look at the signs that are not so harmonious, right? The ones that are square. So these are mutable squares, and the signs that square Gemini are Sagittarius Venus and Virgo Venus. So how does this really work out? I will say that when you have mutable energy in these squares, it's easier than if you have a fixed square, like as we were talking about Venus and Taurus, because it's mutable energy. Adjustments can be made. So we have our Sagittarius, our Pisces Venus with our Gemini Venus, and this can actually work, believe it or not. It really can. If they can get on the same page about how they really want to spend their money, both of them are pretty open when it comes to things like that. Pisces is pretty amiable when it comes to money and how it will be spent or how the finances will be taken care of. And both of them have unique ways of looking at the world and how they love each other. Although Pisces can be a little bit more romantic than Gemini. So this may be one thing. They may be a little too mushy for the Gemini Venus. They may not, Gemini may not love the poetry or being sang to or something, or they might. Every Gemini is different and they are the twins. So there are two sides. I'm going to leave it at that. And then we have our Venus in Virgo. So Venus and Virgo, they're both ruled by Mercury. So this is a combination that can work because they can come to a meeting of the mind, so to speak. I'm going to leave it at that because I think if you have a Venus in Gemini with the Venus in Virgo, and the Mercury placements work, this combination can work all day long because they can, like I said, come to a meeting of the minds and things can actually work out with Virgo and Gemini. Okay, let's go to our opposition, which is Sagittarius. So we have our Gemini Venus ruled by Mercury and our Sagittarius Venus ruled by Jupiter. So really and truly, Sagittarius Venus may be a little too far out there for our Gemini, but they're both on this learning axis where they want to learn more about each other. So they have this in common. Not only are they mutable signs, but they're both also able to look at the world through these intellectual eyes, or the eyes that want to learn more about each other. So I think that Sagittarius may want to spend money on bigger things than Gemini, maybe, but it's a combination that can work. If their values are the same, if Venus can understand the values of the Sagittarius Venus, this combination can actually work. All right, let's look at our sextiles, or the signs that are the same gender. And Gemini is male, and we're looking at both Aries and we're also looking at Leo. So and again, I know we've already done Aries with Gemini, but I want each sign to have the entire combinations. So if they just listen to that sign, they get it. All right, so we have Gemini with Aries. This actually works pretty well. Gemini is so curious. Aries likes a challenge. Gemini Venus can be flirtatious. I think Aries likes that. They like the thrill of the chase. And I actually, from a Gemini Venus point of view, I like this. I like this combination. Okay, then we have our Gemini with Leo. And I've seen this combination work in real life many, many, many times. Leo can be a bit flamboyant, dramatic, but Gemini really doesn't care. It's like as long as they have money they need to pursue their intellectual pursuits and things like that, they really don't care if Leo spends most of the money on something flamboyant or whatever they want. Actually, the Venus and Leo can be very generous, which is complementary to Venus in Gemini. So both of these signs that are sextile to Gemini Venus work out pretty well. So let's look at the signs that are in a quincunx, or 5 signs away from our Venus in Gemini. And these are signs that actually have nothing in common with our Gemini Venus, but I think you're going to be surprised at how this can work together. So we have Scorpio and we have Capricorn. Now, what's interesting is I've seen these Venus signs work together before. Gemini with Scorpio. Okay, now one thing about Scorpio Venus, it can be a bit possessive. So this is one thing. Gemini Venus is a bit flirty, and if we put possessive with flirty, sometimes that might not work. But there's something so curious about Gemini, and they're so curious about Scorpio. And Scorpio really doesn't understand Gemini and wants to get to know them better. So if you can get the possessive part out of the way and you can make the money part of this work, then this combination actually works and is a very interesting dynamic, really. So then we have our Gemini Venus with Capricorn Venus. So Capricorn Venus may be a little too practical for Gemini and maybe a bit too down to earth because Gemini they do value their freedom and openness and open ideas. And Capricorn can get a little bit set on its value system. Now, if they share the same value system, then this could work out pretty well. But really, it comes down to that even more than the money or the love nature of Venus and Gemini and Venus and Capricorn. So if their values are on the same page, and this could all work out really if if they shared a house that was similar. Like let's say if the Capricorn Venus were in the third house, the natal house of Gemini, then possibly this is a combination that could work. But I will say this is going to go for all of the Venus signs, that the houses do count. So if you would like to dig in further, I would love to look at that with you. So moving on, we have the two signs that are semi-sextile or next door to our Gemini Venus. So the first one is Taurus. So Taurus with the Gemini, Taurus very solid, Gemini kind of flirty, very social. Now Taurus can be social, don't get me wrong, but a little bit possessive, maybe not as on the same scale as Scorpio, but maybe a little too possessive for the liking of the Gemini Venus. And then we have the Cancer. So Cancer and Gemini are a very interesting combination when it comes to their Venus signs. Now, Gemini probably doesn't like the way that the Cancer Venus can be a bit just all about family and home sometimes. Gemini likes to be social, likes to be out and moving, is very curious about things. And seriously, Cancer, Venus and Cancer can be a bit more of a homebody. So if they can get on the same page about, how they spend their money and how they go out and do things, this can work. But I think Cancer can be or let's put it this way, Gemini Venus could be maybe a bit aloof to the Cancer Venus who needs more of that security or they need more of that emotional contact where Gemini Venus prefers to keep things on a little bit lighter note. And then, and forgive me, y'all, I did forget to do the Taurus Venus with the Taurus Venus. I want to do that real quick right here. But when you have two Venus signs that are the same, this combination definitely could work. They might be a little too possessive for each other with the Taurus Venus signs. But all of this, as I said before, depends on the houses that the Venus is in. If you've got two complementary houses, like let's say the second house and maybe the sixth house, this could work. So that's Taurus Venus with Taurus Venus. Forgive me for not saying that earlier. So let's get back to our Gemini Venus. Gemini Venus with the Gemini Venus, they could have so much fun together. This could actually work out really well. They would love exploring the world together, communicating with each other, sharing ideas. I think it could be a fun combination. I really like Gemini Venus with another Gemini Venus. Okay, let's move on to the sign of Cancer. Okay, let's look at the Cancer Venus, and this is our cardinal water sign. In any planet in Cancer, there is a certain sensitivity there. And I don't mean that they're sensitive like everything you say hurts their feelings. What I mean is that there's a certain intuition that comes from the sign of Cancer. And of course, every sign can be intuitive, but Cancer is especially so. And when you have your Venus in Cancer, there's something very nurturing and caring about that. Cancer is ruled by the moon, the sign of the mother. They can be very comforting and very sensitive. And by this, I mean sensitive to other people's feelings. They really care about how other people feel and their emotions. Sometimes Venus and Cancer can be a bit moody. They can be a bit passive aggressive sometimes, but they're snuggly and they can be sentimental and dedicated and protective. Venus and Cancer, I would say, is one of the more protective Venus signs. They love to spend time with their family at home. They're attracted to things that are traditional, which is very interesting. I think tradition is one of the things that Venus and Cancer value the most. They really put a high value on ancestry and tradition. And I just want to say, all of you Cancer Venuses out there, if you don't agree with this, sometimes it depends on what house I mean, if it's in the fifth house, it could act quite a bit different than what I'm describing. But they love intimacy. They value intimacy. They value loyalty. They value gentleness and not and if you're a male Venus and Cancer, the fact that you know how to be gentle is a beautiful trait. So please don't be offended by that. They can also be emotional and show their emotions, but Venus and Cancer can just as quickly, if you do hurt their feelings, go back into their crab shell and turn on the passive aggressive tools that they have. So, just some lovely things about our Venus in Cancer. So, let's talk about what other Venus signs go with Venus in Cancer. Which ones get along the best? So, let's start with our two harmonious or signs that make a trine to our Cancer Venus, and that's our other two water signs of Scorpio and Pisces. And I'll just say right away, these Venus signs and the water signs, they get each other on an emotional level. I think what it would come down to the most is money and values. I think they somewhat share the same values. Now, Cancer is more traditional. Pisces is not afraid to go out of the boundaries or out of bounds. So they may not appreciate a tradition as much as the Cancer Venus does, although they are probably just as sensitive as the Cancer Venus and able to show their emotions and have that emotional contact with each other. And Venus can be a bit secretive. Almost anything in Scorpio can be a bit secretive, but with Cancer, they seem to come out just a little bit. These two Venus signs can actually work really well together. So I like the water signs with the Venus sign of Cancer. They all seem to kind of work pretty well. So then we have our sextile signs, the signs with the same gender, which Cancer is a female sign. And so we have Virgo and Taurus, the other two earth signs, two earth signs. So earth and water usually work well together. Taurus and Cancer are said to be the lovers of the zodiac. And you know what? Maybe they are because both of them like this, they both have a thing about security. Cancer really loves security, needs security. Their Venus needs that security, values money, love across the board, and so does Taurus. So I love Taurus and Cancer together. And really, Cancer Venus works well with the Virgo Venus as well. Although Virgo may be a little too analytical for Venus in Cancer, Cancer may be, it's a cardinal sign. They may be pretty set on doing something. And then Virgo analyzes everything and says, nope, we're not going to invest our money here, or we're not going to do this or that. But I will say, when it comes to money, Cancer can use their intuition and kind of intuit where investments might work best or what real estate they need to buy. What would work best with that. So, Virgo may do well to actually trust Cancer's judgment when it comes to money. But again, Virgo Venus with Cancer Venus can definitely work really well together. Okay, let's take a look at our Cancer Venus with signs that are not harmonious. And this would be the other two cardinal signs. Well, there's three, but we're not going to get to the opposition quite yet. But these signs are square to our Venus in Cancer, and that's the Aries Venus and the Libra Venus. So I think Libra Venus is a bit cerebral for Cancer Venus because although a Libra is ruled by Venus itself, it is an air sign. So it's a bit intellectual about things. Not that Cancer can't be intellectual, that's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that Cancer is a bit more emotional about things. And believe me, Libra wants nothing more than to keep things in balance. And I think Cancer Venus can get a little too emotional for Venus in Libra. And I'm going to say the same for Venus and Aries. Aries wants to move a bit too quickly, is a bit too impulsive for Venus and Cancer. So if you have your Venus in Cancer and your partner has Venus in Libra or Aries, these are just things to look out for. Aries may move a little too fast. It might be a little too risky for Venus in Cancer, and a Libra may be a little too cerebral or not emotional enough for Venus in Cancer. Just some things to look at. Although I've said this before, I do think any of the Venus signs can make it work if the other planets in the charts work together pretty well. So then we have the opposition, the other cardinal sign, Capricorn. Now, funny enough, this one actually works. And I'll tell you why. Because both of these signs, both of these Venus signs, value tradition. Although Capricorn may not be as emotionally sensitive as Venus and Cancer, because they both value home and family, they're on the home and family axis, because they both value ancestry, tradition, as Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, Father Time. Both of them kind of value the old ways of doing things sometimes. It's very interesting, but this combination can actually work. All right, so what about our signs that are quincunx? These are the signs that are 5 signs apart that have absolutely nothing in common with our Venus in Cancer. And we have Venus in Aquarius and Venus in Sagittarius. So Venus in Aquarius, again, an air Venus that could be a bit cerebral, maybe a bit too aloof for our Venus in Cancer. There is this curiosity between the two because they really don't understand each other that well. Also, Venus in Aquarius is very futuristic. It's really a forward-looking sign ruled by Uranus. So Venus in Cancer and Venus in Aquarius, that's a toss-up. I mean, if the other signs and the other placements fit in the chart, it could work, but it's an interesting combination. They really don't have much in common, or they really nothing in common. So possibly if they're in the right houses, maybe if the Cancer Venus is in the 11th house, this could work. All right. And then Sagittarius. So Venus in Sagittarius really wants to get out in the world. They're ruled by Jupiter. They like to do things big. It's not that they prefer to do things small, but they like their intimacy, their community. That means so much to them. And Sagittarius Venus is not so much about that. So again, this is another one of those toss-ups where if there were the right combination of other planets, this could work. And finally, we have our signs that are semi-sextile, or the next door signs to our Venus in Cancer. So we have Leo Venus and Gemini Venus. So Gemini Venus, again, an air sign. I think this could work sometimes because the Gemini Venus would try to really understand Venus in Cancer because they're ruled by Mercury. But at the same time, their curiosity, their flirtatiousness, their need to be social, may be a bit too much for Venus in Cancer. And then Venus in Leo. Venus and Leo can be really, really sweet, very loyal. I think the Venus and Cancer would really appreciate that about Venus and Leo. They'd be on the same page with that. We're looking at the rulers, the sun and the moon here. So I kind of think this combination can work better than most think it could, because even though Leo may be a bit more flamboyant when it comes to spending money, they have goals too and ambitions. So if the two could get on the same side when it comes to finances, this is a combination that could work pretty well. And finally, we have Venus in Cancer with Venus in Cancer. You may never see them again. They may go to their home and never come out and just be into each other for the rest of their lives. Of course, I'm joking, but this is definitely a combination that works. There is this innate understanding of each other since they both have their Venus in the same sign. The only way this would get a little bit more complicated is if the houses were not compatible, meaning like if one had Venus in the first house, typically the Aries house, and the other one had their Venus maybe in the fourth house. That might prove to be a little bit more challenging, but basically two Venus in Cancers would work out really well. All right, let's go on to Leo. So Leo is one of my favorite Venus signs. And I'll tell you why. Because Venus and Leo, they give the best gifts. Now, I'm not sure why this is, except Leo rules the heart. So possibly Venus and Leo, they give from their heart space. They give from that large heart that Leo always seems to have. So let's talk about some adjectives for Leo. They're generous, both in love and money. They're dramatic. They're warm. They're proud. They're loyal. And love is very important to Leo. Affection and romance are really important to a Venus and Leo. They can be a lot of fun, but they can also be jealous. They want to be number one. Let me tell you that right now. They like romance, luxury. They can be very extravagant with those they love and with themselves. They want everybody and everyone to have fun around them. I think they value that which is genuine. There's something very genuine about Venus in Leo. So let's look at the compatibility with Venus and Leo. And let's start with our fire signs of Aries and Sagittarius. These are the signs that make a trine or a harmonious aspect to Venus and Leo. And Aries and both Aries and Sagittarius, being fellow fire signs, definitely get along with our Leo Venus pretty well. I do think that Aries may present more of a challenge to the Leo than what they really want to handle. They kind of have that royal air about them. They really want to be number one, and so does Aries. So this could be a problem, but they would make a dynamic duo for sure. And then Sagittarius with our Leo. This one's interesting as well because Sagittarius and Leo can both have a bit of drama. They like extravagance and they like things big. This is Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter. One problem they may have is they may spend too much money on each other or the adventures they would have together. They would really have to get on the same page concerning finances because they're almost too much alike. So let's look at the signs that aren't so much alike. The signs that are making a square or an aspect that's not harmonious to Leo. And so when we have this, we have both Scorpio on one side, and then we have Taurus on the other side. Okay, so this gets interesting. Taurus and Leo can actually get along. They both kind of like the luxury of life. They like to be seen together. I think that the Venus in Leo looks really good on the arm of the Venus in Scorpio. But Scorpio may be a bit possessive for Venus and Leo. Now, I think Venus and Leo can handle it, and they may actually like it at first, but maybe that could be too much after some time. And also, I think Venus and Leo could be a bit dramatic for Venus and Scorpio. So let's look at Taurus. So it's the same a bit. I think they both love the same things. Both of them love the more luxurious things. Both probably dress really well. They probably have very good taste in what they wear, and they appreciate that about each other, the Taurus Venus and the Leo Venus. But then the Taurus Venus could be a bit possessive, and this could be a problem for the Venus in Leo. And I do think Venus and Taurus is more practical about spending and probably a bit too practical for Venus in Leo. So just some things to think about if you have one of those combinations. And then we have the two signs that are sextile or the same gender as our Venus and Leo, which is male. So we have Libra and Gemini. I love Gemini and Leo together, actually, except that Leo really craves romance and affection. And sometimes Gemini is a bit cerebral. They may be a bit aloof, and they may be a little too flirty for our Venus in Leo. And then for Libra, this one can actually work as well. They look good together. As I said, Venus in Libra usually has a beautiful sense of fashion, and Leo Venus likes that. Male or female, it doesn't matter. They like that sense of fashion that Libra can have. And I think, but Leo does like to be the one that stands out. And I think that probably the only problem is they could be a bit dramatic at times for our Venus in Libra. And then we have the signs that are in a quincunx or 5 signs apart. And these are the signs that absolutely do not understand Leo at all. And Leo doesn't understand them. They have nothing in common. And this is Capricorn and Pisces. So Pisces being mutable water with our fixed fire of our Venus, Leo. This is interesting because Venus in Pisces can be quite sweet and loving and romantic, which Leo Venus would love. But they're kind of slippery, aloof. They're not always as stable. They move around a bit more than Venus and Leo would like. They kind of want the attention to be on them. And Pisces is not afraid to show their attention to everyone, and not in a romantic way, but just they love everyone. They have compassion for everyone. And we'll get to that when we get to Venus in Pisces. But when it comes to Venus and Leo, they really had rather have the attention fixed on them. And then our Capricorn Venus with our Leo Venus. Capricorn Venus is probably just plain too practical for our Venus and Leo. Although this combination can make quite the power couple, really. The ambition of Capricorn Venus with the ambition and desire of our Venus and Leo is actually a very tantalizing combination. It really is. But when it comes down to the money part of it, this is where they could get in a bit of trouble. Although I think Venus and Capricorn can be very genuine, as can Venus and Leo. So they may share the same value system. And if they did, that could work. They could make this work. And we have our signs that are semi-sextile, or the next door signs to Leo, and we have Virgo and Cancer. So the Virgo Venus may be a tad bit cerebral for our Venus in Libra. Just a little bit too much of a perfectionist. That makes Leo a bit nervous when they don't think they look just right. Not that Leos are vain. As I said before, this is one of my favorite Venus signs. I absolutely love it. They have the biggest heart space ever, but they really need that romance. Now, can Venus and Virgo step up to that? You would be surprised, because Venus and Virgo really likes to serve other people. It really likes to do things for people they love. So, in this sense, the Virgo Venus with the Leo Venus can actually work really well. So, Venus in Cancer. Well, I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that Venus in Leo really likes to get out. They like to be seen. They like things to be romantic and luxurious a bit. But then Venus in Cancer is very caring and they can be very romantic. So you put this combination together and it could work. But it gets a little bit iffy when your Venus in Cancer could be a little bit sensitive, and the Venus in Leo just kind of doesn't see that because they're a fire sign, and they may not love all of the emotional support that a Venus in Cancer would need. And finally, we have our Venus in Leo with Venus in Leo. Well, this is a power couple for sure. They would look great together. They would be super romantic. It could definitely work depending on the houses. And this is the only place I don't think this could work. Let's just say we have Venus and Leo at home in the fifth house, and then maybe we have Venus and Leo in the seventh house, maybe. And that may not work as well. The Venus in the seventh house may be a little bit too Libran, or, maybe not put all their focus on the Venus in Leo. But we are talking about Venus and Leo with Venus and Leo. I just think the houses count when it comes to this. So basically, yeah, they see things the same way, their values are the same, and it's a beautiful combination. And our last sign for today is going to be Venus in Virgo. I'm going to follow up with the other 6 signs next week or in the next video, because I wanted to take my time with each sign and really go into how that Venus sign works in love, values, money, attraction, all of those things. So let's get to our Venus in Virgo. So Venus in Virgo is very thoughtful. They truly care about other people, and not just people that they're in love with or they have a romantic relationship with, but basically Venus in Virgo really has this caring nature about everybody. So they're very thoughtful. There's something about them that's very practical. I love the word analytical for Virgo because they will analyze a situation, anything that Venus and Virgo wants to really understand what's going on around them. And this goes for their finances, values, attraction, what they wear. Most Venus and Virgos take very good care of themselves. They may be very health conscious. They may really they may spend money on healthcare or things that make them healthier, or diets or something like that. They're great with budgeting. So if we're looking at another Venus sign that's a little bit flamboyant with spending money, Virgo can definitely tone that down just a bit. They are productive for the most part. They're organized. And when I say organized for this Virgo Venus, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is in order for everybody else. It's in order for them. It's like they know where everything is. They like to have everything organized. That's attractive to them. That is what attracts them, that organization. They probably don't take very many financial risks. They'd rather have their investments in stocks or whatever that is sturdy. Are they savers? Maybe. I think it depends on the Virgo, but they are often very good with money and they have a strategy. So a Venus and Virgo can often make money really easily. They're not so much about the frills of things, although most Venus and Virgos, they do look good, they do dress well, but not in the same flamboyant way as some of the other Venus signs. But their analytical thinking kind of drives that Venus sign. You know, what is best for me? What suits me best in a relationship? You know, they look at it from more of a mercurial point of view, ruled by Mercury, of course. So let's look at the compatibility of Virgo Venus with the other Venus signs. So first we have the signs that are in trine or in harmony with Virgo. And that's our other two earth signs. We have Taurus and we have Capricorn. Now, Capricorn Venus with Virgo Venus actually works out because there's that practicality to both of those signs, and really they're building on something together. You know, Virgo may set the budget financially, but Capricorn, because it can be somewhat ambitious, will build on that budget. They can work together like that. I think the only problem with this one might be is their values may be a little different. Um, Capricorn may value the more traditional. Virgo, I think, although they're not as quite as outgoing as the Aquarius, as far as future forward thinking, they do like to try out new things. They may not want to be quite as traditional as the Capricorn. And then we have Taurus. And, you know, Virgo is a mutable sign. So it does like change. It can get bored easily, just like Gemini. So when it comes to the Taurus may be a little too grounded and stable for the Virgo, but basically because they're grounded earth signs, this is a combination that could definitely work. Okay, then we have our sextile signs to Virgo, and these are signs that are of the same gender. Virgo is actually female. So we have our Scorpio and our Cancer, our two water signs. So when you put Cancer Virgo Cancer Venus with Virgo Venus, this is one that can actually work. Both of them genuinely care about other people. They both have this genuine compassion and desire to help others. And this is something that could bind those two Venus signs together quite nicely. And then we have Scorpio. So it's funny because Venus in Virgo is very interesting. Although their Mars sign is the one that really indicates this more than the Venus sign, Virgo can get a little kinky in the bedroom. So Scorpio and Virgo Venuses actually get along really well. Although Virgo does not enjoy the jealousy that can come from a Venus in Scorpio or the possessiveness. But other than that, I think the financial part of it works really well, and also the values of these two signs can work together well. Okay, then we have the two signs that are in a square or an aspect that is challenging to the Virgo Venus. So we have our Gemini Venus and our Sagittarius Venus. So Gemini Venus and Virgo Venus are both ruled by Mercury. Although the Gemini Venus is a bit more curious, and then the Virgo Venus is a bit more analytical. This combination can actually work. They could get on the same page financially, but the Venus in Gemini may be a little bit more social than the Venus in Virgo. But because of the having Mercury in common, they both can get a little bit cerebral about things, intellectual about things, and this combination can actually work. So we put our Virgo Venus with Sagittarius Venus. I think Sagittarius can get a little bit too adventurous for the Venus and Virgo. Venus and Virgo is a bit more reserved, not only with money, but with their personality in general. They can, not that Venus and Virgo can't have fun. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're a little bit more reserved than our Venus and Sagittarius. So, and their value system would definitely have to match. You know, Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter, values very important in that realm. And then we have our Virgo Venus. So they would have to have similar values in order for this combination to really work. But it's a doable combination, even with the challenging square, because the energies are mutable, it's workable. And then we have our opposition. We have Pisces. You know, I think Pisces Virgo opposition is one of the most interesting combinations in the zodiac. You know, natural rulers of the sixth house and the 12th house. It's like you've got the physical with the mental, you've got the physical with the spiritual. And when you put the whole thing together, these two Venus signs can actually work. As long as the Venus in Pisces is willing to go along with the budget that the Venus in Virgo sets, they can actually make things work. There's this understanding between the two, and there's a compassion for other people, just kind of like Cancer, that the two of these Venus signs share. That's very compelling, very interesting, and actually like this opposition. Okay, and we have our signs that are in quincunx, that in conjunct, 5 signs apart, that actually really don't understand Virgo at all. They are completely different. We have Aries and we have Aquarius. So Aquarius with Virgo is very interesting because Aquarius can be very cerebral, just like Virgo can. So they kind of can get on the same page when it comes to learning more about each other. But Virgo can get too into the details and the analytics of things. And Aquarius had rather be out doing something. But there's something very humanitarian about both of these Venus signs as well that can actually work. So this is one of the quincunxes that actually like pretty well. And then we have Aries. So Aries Venus is definitely too much of a risk taker for our Venus and Virgo. They are Venus and Virgo is way more conservative unless they have lots of planets in signs that are not as conservative. This combination probably wouldn't work as well, at least on a financial level. They could get on the same page, I think, with their values because both sides could be very straightforward, very honest. They want to keep things on the up and up, on the level, but they would definitely have to work through that budget plan. So if you are a Venus and Virgo and you were going out with, or you were in a partnership with a Venus and Aries, this is where you need to get things together in that financial arena because there's different views on taking risk with money. And then we have our 2 signs that are semi-sextile or the next door signs. We have Libra and we have Leo. So believe it or not, Libra Venus and Virgo Venus can actually work things out because Libra Venus likes things to be balanced too, including the books, right? Although they may be a bit more flamboyant than Venus and Virgo, there's something about having these 2 signs work together. The Venus and Virgo being very caring, the Venus in Libra being an air sign, and Virgo being ruled by Mercury, that just works somehow. And I've seen this combination a lot. And that's, you try to figure out why some combinations work and why some don't. And of course, the whole chart counts. You've got to look at everything. But I think a lot of this has to do with the air signs, Aquarius and Libra. Um, the air signs are all about Mercury. And then you put Virgo in there, the earth sign ruled by Mercury, and somehow it works a little bit better, maybe. But it's very interesting. And then our Venus in Leo. I actually like this combination as well because, as I said, Virgo is they really and truly want to help other people. And Leo loves that. They're all for it. They may be a little bit too flamboyant, a little bit too dramatic for Venus and Virgo, but it is a workable combination. Okay, then we have our Venus and Virgo with Venus and Virgo. This one I'm not so sure about because both of them are going to see things analytic. They're going to analyze things from different angles, right? Um, if they're on the same page, this is a sign combination, Virgo with Virgo Venus, that could work all day long depending on the houses, of course, because if they are not on the same page, I don't really see this working at all because they see things, they could see things very differently. They want things organized in a very different way. Both Venus and Virgo likes to be organized, but if you have two Venus and Virgos and both of them wanting to organize things in a different way, I just see this one as being a throw up. It really would depend on the houses the Venus signs are in. So I hope you have enjoyed part one of Venus sign compatibility, and I will be back with part two. If you would like to book a reading with me, I would love to look at your chart. You can see how to book in the notes below or go to soulnavigation.com, and I will see you next time. Bye from Florida.